Hi. Hi, everyone. It's Monica from the State Board. Welcome back. You are now in our third session of our four-part series on accessible math. For those of you who were here yesterday talking about Word and Canvas, thank you so much for coming back today. We're talking about PowerPoint and Google. Um, a few reminders. I do have Zoom's auto captioning turned on. We are recording this session. Chat is on, but we ask that you do your best to put your questions that you want answered by our presenter or by myself and Dawn in the Q&A. It's much easier for us to track what we've answered and what we haven't from there. Um, and we're gonna so Dawn and I will moderate the chat. So if something does, get shared or a question gets asked in chat that's, critical and we need Sean's attention on it, we will help voice that to Sean during his time. And I think that's all I have to say. If you are not familiar with the Q&A feature, you should be able to access it from your Zoom toolbar. If you don't see it just right now, what you'll need to do is select the button that's labeled More. It's a circle with three dots inside of it. And from that menu, you should see Q&A. And when you press Q&A, a dialog box will open up on your screen where you can type your question. Without further ado, I'm going to welcome back Sean Jordanson, the accessibility guy, to talk to us about accessibility in PowerPoint and Google. I will say some of the things and the core concepts that he's going to cover will be will be repeat from yesterday, and that's a good thing, so that we're all kind of rehearing some of the same messaging that we talked about yesterday, and even earlier in the month with Zach and me. Okay, so thank you, and Sean, it's yours now.
Awesome. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me back. Today, I'm hoping to offer a simplified lecture on some of the items we discussed yesterday, and we're going to focus more on a clear workflow for accomplishing getting our math accessible. So welcome, everyone, and thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. Let me begin sharing my screen. And today, we have the Math Accessibility Extension Workshop. And somebody's calling me. Oh my goodness. Hang on one second. I'm sorry. Perfect. My apologies. Okay. I'm still sharing, so let's try that again. So about Sean Jorson, this is me. I have a master's degree in assistive technology and human services, an EDD certificate in educational technology and leadership. I dropped out at the very end to pursue my entrepreneurship spirit. I have well over 100 units in doctoral studies. 16 years of experience in accessibility, accommodations, alternate media, assistive technology, and disability studies, and a YouTube channel with over 16,000 subscribers and roughly 400 videos of accessibility content. So those are my street credentials for accessibility. Today's agenda, we are going to talk about the foundations of math accessibility and equity. I narrowed the list down to two encoding types. We're going to talk about LaTeX or MathML, and MathML. And then I'm going to provide an overview of tools, including MathType and MathPix. And then we're going to demo creating accessible equations and a practical workflow for ensuring that our math is accessible. And then finally, we will answer all of your important questions and wrap up. So it's important to begin. Not all math is created equally. For example, an equation written in Word using MathType can be read aloud correctly by a screen reader like JAWS or NVDA. But that same document, if it's converted to a PDF, the math is just an image with no structure, meaning it's no longer accessible. So when we say not all math is created equally, we're really saying that accessibility depends on two things: the encoding format and the technology used to access it. So what is our end goal? Well, we have a lot of avoiding to do. We want to get our math as MathML inside of a Word document or an HTML page like Canvas. That is our goal. The reason for this is because it is the most accessible across operating systems, assistive technologies, learning management systems. It is the best method to get our math at a great starting point. If we can get our math inside of a Word document with MathML, we help our accommodation specialists creating Braille, large print, and a variety of other important accommodations. In addition to that, our end goal is to avoid using images of math with alternate text. We want to avoid math in a PDF altogether. I know, it's a lot. We also want to avoid math in the Google Suite. And I'm going to give you a workflow to get your math accessible if you are creating in the Google Suite of products. Additionally, we want to avoid math in a PowerPoint. So what that means is we need to prepare a different deliverable for the content that is in a PowerPoint. So if you have math in a PowerPoint, there's a workflow we need to apply. All right, let's talk a little bit about encoding types and math information. So what encoding means, it basically defines how the math is represented and interpreted by software and assistive technology. Without encoding, math is just an image, visually readable but inaccessible to screen readers. Properly encoded math allows for navigation, audio rendering, Braille translation, and accurate interpretation of structures for things like fractions, exponents, and other math components. Today, we're going to talk about two different types of encoding. We have MathML, which is machine generated, and LaTeX, human authored. MathML, or mathematical markup language, encodes math using what's called XML tags. It defines both the structure and the meaning of the content. It enables screen readers and Braille devices to read and navigate equations accurately. It forms the foundation of accessible math for web and Canvas learning management system environments. I have two screenshots on this page. The first in the bottom left corner is the quadratic equation in its visual form. The right-hand side is the MathML that was generated by my computer to display that math accurately. And it's kind of difficult to understand. It's not really meant to be read by a human. It's totally machine generated. There are some pros and cons to MathML. Here are the pros. It's fully accessible and readable by screen readers and Braille displays. It preserves both the visual layout and the mathematical meaning, works directly in Canvas, HTML, and EPUB formats, and allows users to navigate the equations term by term. It's what we call universally accessible. Here are the cons. It's difficult to write manually, I would say impossible, and requires an equation editor or conversion tool to create. Not all browsers or PDF readers render MathML consistently. So this is why we definitely don't want to have math in a PDF. It has zero MathML support. Converting legacy equations or images can be very time consuming. You often have to recreate them one equation at a time. Next, we're going to talk about LaTeX, a plain text typesetting language used to write mathematical and scientific notation. Raise your hand if you're familiar with LaTeX. I bet you all are. It uses keyboard symbols and commands, for example, \frac AB for A over B. It's human authored. It's easy to edit, copy, and share if you understand it. And it is interpreted by other tools like Canvas and MathType, which can convert into accessible MathML. Commonly used in STEM education and publishing for creating precise professional equations. There's a screenshot on this slide which has some example LaTeX that is being displayed as our presentational math. Here are some pros and cons to LaTeX. Some of the pros: it's simple keyboard-based input, it's easy to edit and reuse, and it's supported in Canvas, Equation, and MathType. It converts cleanly into MathML for accessibility, and it's portable across multiple platforms and file types. Here are some of the cons. Raw LaTeX code isn't directly readable by screen readers until rendered. Requires some syntax knowledge or an editor that supports it. Complex equations can be lengthy or error prone, and formatting depends on proper rendering support in the target platform. Additionally, this is another reason why we want to avoid math in a PDF or images of math, because typically what I see a lot of faculty do is just paste in the LaTeX description in the alternate text. Now that might be useful for someone who understands LaTeX, but as someone who doesn't, I wouldn't understand at all what was being said. Next, we're going to talk about some tools to generate encoding. Now, first, I'm going to give you an overview of these tools, and then at the end of this slide deck, I have some workflows that we're going to work through, and I'm going to demo some of these tools. So first and foremost, we have a tool called MathType. MathType is a toolbar that sits in popular editing programs. This tool is used to manually create math and switch equations back and forth from different encoding types. We then have MathPix, which I'm most excited to show you. This tool can be used to OCR math from anywhere. Users can use the online platform to convert documents that have already been created that contain handwritten math or images of math. Finally, we have the built-in equation editor in Microsoft. The built-in equation editor can get math into a mostly accessible format for Word, but it doesn't work that well in PowerPoint, unfortunately. So let's do a little bit of a deeper dive for MathType. MathType is a commercial equation editor for creating mathematical notation in digital content. It works with Word, PowerPoint, Google Docs, and it's actually integrated into the default equation editor for Canvas and Moodle. It supports LaTeX and MathML and lets users insert equations visually or by typing code. It has a WYSIWYG editing with templates and symbols that you can choose from. It has handwriting recognition on some touch devices. So if your students need an accessible way to enter their equations, this is a great tool for that. You can export the math to image-based extensions like SVG or PNG. Don't recommend it, but it is a key feature. You can also customize the fonts and styles, and it's keyboard and screen reader accessible. MathType is made by this company called Wireless and sold by subscription. It's about $64 a user per year with academic discounts, and there is a 30-day trial available. So that's MathType. Next, let's talk about the MathPix Snip OCR tool. So MathPix is an AI-powered tool that converts handwritten or printed math into digital accessible formats. It can recognize equations, symbols, and text from screenshots, PDFs, or handwritten notes. The outputs include LaTeX for typesetting and editing, MathML for accessible screen reader math, or text to Word for general use and further editing. The screenshot on this slide represents the MathPix snipping tool. This is a lightweight application that runs in my start menu, and I could open it up and simply snip some math to generate the various types of encoding. Next, we're going to talk about the full web product. And I didn't know what to call it because all of these tools use the same name for a lot of their features. But the MathPix website, not the snipping tool, gives us even more power. So it has the ability to convert full PDF scans into accessible Word documents. There's a series of 6 steps. The first one is you got to have your file ready, preferably in a PDF. Step 2, you're going to sign into your account at MathPix. Step 3, you're going to upload the PDF. Step 4, you're going to convert it to what's called a note. This is like the editing feature from within MathPix. Step 5, you want to visually scan and ensure the LaTeX is correct. And then step 6, you're simply going to export to Word with MathML enabled. Boom, it's that easy. Here is a short comparison list between MathPix and MathType, and I have to thank Monica for providing this to me. It's awesome. So the primary function for these tools, for MathPix, it's to convert images and PDFs of math into digital formats. The primary function of math type is to create and edit math equations from scratch using a user-friendly interface. The key strength of MathPix is transcribing existing equations from screenshots, PDFs, and handwritten input. And the key strength for math type is writing new complex documents and chemical notation efficiently. The input method for MathPix is an OCR from image or PDF. Users can draw a box around content to capture. The input method for math type is a WYSIWYG editor. It supports typing, pointing and clicking, or LaTeX input. The output for MathPix includes LaTeX, MathML, or ASCII math. And the output for math type includes high-quality images, MathML, and other formats depending on the application. The best use case for MathPix is converting a research paper PDF into a searchable document. I shouldn't say best case. Here is a single use case. And another use case for math type would be writing a textbook or a research paper from scratch. The user experience for MathPix can be a minimalist user experience for the editing process after conversion. And the user experience for math type is considered user-friendly for creating a complete file from scratch. I got through that whole slide with only one blunder. So these tools are perfect for getting your math accessible. But what about math in my Google Docs, Sean? I've been a professor for years, and I do everything in Google Docs. Well, unfortunately, the default editor leaves much to be desired. It can work with some simple algebraic equations, but the math is not MathML. There is a math type integration into the Google Suite, but unfortunately, it inserts the math as an image. And then it actually gives us the MathML as the alternate text. So I screenshotted a easy math equation, 2 1/2, and this content in the red box is what was provided for the alternate text that was generated from the math type plugin. So unfortunately, this is completely inaccessible. I know, gasp. I said the same thing. I couldn't believe it. What about math in Microsoft? Well, it's not much better. So in PowerPoint, each slide is a visual object layer. Equations are actually embedded as shapes, not inline text elements, which is what would be needed for accessibility. Because of that, PowerPoint's equations do not appear in the document's text flow and are often skipped or read out of order by screen readers. PowerPoint does not export MathML or preserve equation structure when saved to PDF. Not that we're going to be doing that to PDF, but it really doesn't do it well. I have a screenshot on this slide, which represents an equation that I could never tell you what it is. However, I launched a screen reader of mine, and we actually have something that's called a speech viewer in the screen reader. So we have the equation on top, and I hovered my mouse over that equation while in PowerPoint. And what it read to me was object placeholder shape, x plus a, n equals k, equals 0, n, nk, xk, a, n minus k. It did not give me any of the power info or the semantic structure of the equation itself. So unfortunately, equations in PowerPoint are totally not accessible. So you would not be able to give a student a PowerPoint slide deck with math in it if they were a screen reader user. All right. Next, we're going to talk about some of the workflows for creating various aspects of math. And we're going to start with Microsoft Word and using math type to generate equations. So I'm going to launch a blank document within Microsoft Word, and we're going to create a midterm. This is math 1 million, and it's the final. Oh, wait, I said midterm, huh? We'll do midterm. And I am a goofy guy, and sometimes whenever I exaggerate things, it just makes me a little happier and easier to follow along. So I was envisioning math 100, 200, and because I'm not very good at my math skills, we're going to be in math 1 million because I feel like it's appropriate. And so we're going to set up some questions, okay? And we want to solve them. And here's question 1. By the way, this part is not foreign to me. I love structuring our content with a heading structure. So I think it's nice to have question 1. And then if you expected the students to enter in their own equations, you could even put in another heading structure like response for question 1. And it gives the user an opportunity to be able to know exactly where they need to input their work. Anyways, for cases of today, we're going to enter an equation using math type. So I have math type installed. It's a paid for application. And I simply select the math type toolbar. And on the far left-hand side, I can choose different ways to input my math. I'm going to choose inline for today. Now, I wish I can zoom in on this window for you, but I can't. There are a whole bunch of different options we could choose from for entering our math using this tool. Now, I'm lazy and I don't know math, so I'm going to choose the quadratic formula from the default menu here. And we're going to do x equals the quadratic formula. And then I'm simply going to close the box. And just like that, just like magic, in our Math 1 Million course, we now have an equation that was entered using math type. Now, fun fact about this equation, it is in MathML. I can double click it. It opens in math type. This is a surefire way to understand that our math is accessible. Yay. And you can resize it. You could add additional equations. You could even copy and paste it. So I can hit Control C on my keyboard, go underneath it, and paste it. That's awesome. So you could change your variables around, do what you want. Now, one pro tip, it's best if your math is on an individual line. So you don't want to have your math like in line with an equation like this, excuse me, within a sentence structure. Typically, the best practice is have the math on its own individual line. This helps for if you're taking it to Braille or some other accommodation down the line. It's best to have that math just on its own line. That is my recommendation to you. Okay, so that is one thing we can do. What else were we going to cover? Upload the Word doc. You know, I don't have a workflow on this because I just kind of assume that everyone does it. So this was entered using math type. What I'm going to show next is entering using the equation editor. Let's make that a heading structure. I'm going to do a new line. And if I select the insert button, followed by equation, oh, what did I learn yesterday? Is it alt equals? Yeah, look at me. Got the shortcuts down. But I actually don't want to do that because then I'm left to my own imagination for what to enter for an equation. And since this is Math 1 Million, we're gonna put in a dummy proof one. So let's take the binomial theorem. That's what the other one was. I totally knew that. Let's left justify it. We don't want it center justified. Now this is entered using the equation editor, not math type. So a little bit of a different encoding. We have the ability to edit the math right here in the equation editor. That's fantastic. This is accessible in the way that it is. So now what we could do, I think I mentioned on the slide here to what the best practice is. And I know we're not necessarily talking about Canvas today, but there's two options that we could do to finish up this workflow. Option one, you could simply attach this beautifully accessible Word document into your course. Or you could create a Canvas page and put this content into it. That would be the next step of your workflow. we would probably want to use math type to generate the LaTeX description. Excuse me, the LaTeX encoding, so that you would have an easier time getting it into Canvas. But that's like a pathway that you could take. All right, let's do the next one. So what about a workflow for a scanned PDF? Now, I know what you're thinking. You're saying, Sean, this is all fine and dandy, but I've got like 100 pages to do. How are we going to do that? Well, let me show you. One moment while I pull up a sample document. So I have this PDF, and it has some math in it, and it has some graphs in it. Awesome. This is a great first step. So this is what it looks like in Adobe Acrobat Pro DC. Let me pull open my browser here. And I'm on MathPix Snip's website, okay? This is not the OCR snipping tool, which I can show you. This is how to convert a PDF to accessible Word. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take my file and I'm going to drag it into this little section called Start Uploading. We want everything to be defaulted, and we're going to select Upload. And it will begin converting our documents. Now, it's kind of happening on the back end, and we can simply view the PDF in its normal way right here, just as a PDF viewer. Or we can open it in our notes format. And what this does is it provides like a LaTeX editor. I'm trying to zoom in a little bit so you can see what we're looking at. So we have the visual display on our right-hand panel. We have the textual display here in the center, and all of that math. I'm going to pull up the PDF one more time. All this math was automatically scanned and OCR'd, and it's being presented to me in LaTeX. It's pretty powerful. I didn't have to really do anything. Now, since this is Math 1 Million, and you guys know my math skills are on point, I'm just going to assume that the LaTeX in here is perfect. But for those of you who might be in a higher math course than me, you can validate the LaTeX yourself to ensure the accuracy. And I highly recommend it, because truthfully, I don't totally know if every equation is accurate, but you know, I would hope we would be able to start determining that. Now, there are some areas in here that contain graphics, but truthfully, I don't know this tool completely in and out in how it handles figures. However, what I can say for a matter of fact is that it's pulling the math out of the image, and it should render the image as an image. Now, I do believe, I actually had a call with MathPix today, we could actually add alternate text directly in the LaTeX editor. We can change the way that it's displayed. You can change the font, all of those things. So let's pretend this was like 100 pages. And what do we do now? Well, there's a couple of different things we can do. One, I believe that we have the ability to share a read-only link. So in the chat, I'm going to just share this with you. It's not mandatory to engage with this. I just want to show you what it looks like because it's full HTML. And if I open up that link, it actually shows me that document in HTML with our accessible math inlaid right here. It's beautiful. However, what if we want to get it as a Word document? What we're going to do next is simply select the share button. Excuse me, not share. We want to export as, and we have the option to do docx, LaTeX, HTML, PDF with LaTeX, but we're going to do docx. We can choose the different fonts or font size. I think it's always good to do like font size 12 minimum. That's a different accessibility discussion. Georgia is fine. I prefer Calibre. And our language is going to be English, but it's going to be automatically generated. Then we select export. and it is going to give me a Word document that we will review next. Let's open up that Word document. Give me one moment. And just like that, our math has all been converted, and it's in the equation editor from Word. So to summarize, we took a scanned PDF, we uploaded it into MathPix, we validated the LaTeX was accurate, and then we exported to an accessible Word document that has all of the equations entered with the built-in equation editor. From here, you can make additional changes, or you can simply provide this to your student or upload it into your Canvas course. Now, of course, there's always discussion around charts and graphs. MathPix doesn't automatically write alternate text. These things are still necessary to write, but that is outside the scope of today's presentation. Where I want to get us is first just getting the math into a usable space, and that's what this did. So despite all of my talking, and granted, I talk pretty fast, we were able to get that document converted over into Microsoft Word in minutes. I have other samples I can show, but let me make sure I talked about everything that I want to talk about. Yeah, exporting the Word document to MathML. We could do another document. Let's do home. Let's just do another sample because I feel like it's so nice. It's worth seeing twice. We're going to take this document and we're going to upload it. This one is a practice take-home exam. And we have our file in here. Now, I needed to have these cookies pre-made, if you will, because we had an issue with the rendering live during yesterday's demonstration. So I preloaded these documents earlier today to ensure that this worked appropriately. So we have another question exam in here. Let's view our note. My apologies. I think I messed something up in here. Here we go. We've got the editor in preview. We have all the LaTeX, and we have the display math over on the right-hand side. So again, you can do all of your editing inside of the editor right here and convert it over nicely. And if you're curious, this is what the original file looked like. So next, we would do our export as. We can do docx. We could do export. And we can review our file. And here it is with all of our math properly embedded via the equation editor. Fantastic news, am I right? All right. What else do we got in this presentation? Monica, I may have cut too much, but that's okay. We can talk about the next part of this. So here's a workflow for math in a Google Doc. Don't do it. So math in the Google Suite is totally inaccessible. I can't believe it either. Here are the steps if you're creating math in a Google Doc to make it accessible. You're going to export that file as a PDF. You're going to upload that PDF into MathPix, convert it to a note, edit the LaTeX, and export to a Word document. So basically following the same structure that we did, that would be the workflow that you use. So if I go into my Google Drive account and we do a new Google Doc, and I don't know, did we graduate from our Math 1 million and now we're in Math 2 million? I love it. I agree. We should do that. Let's do an example math problem. Now, I just can't believe how terrible Google is. It's good in so many ways, but the math aspect is just terrible. So we're going to do insert, symbols, and then equation. and we are very limited in our options. We have some operators, symbols, but everything kind of has to be hand keyed in. So I guess if we're doing something real simple, like 2 plus 2, whoa, mega zoom. The thing is, this is just live text. It's not actually embedded as any type of encoding. Now, because I pay for math type, there's an extension we can use right here within Google. So I'm going to launch the math type extension within Google. Hopefully I don't experience Murphy's Law. We're going to select open math type. And it pulls up a box where we can begin entering our math. But here's the problem. We're going to do something real simple. We're going to do something square root of 3, I think. And we're going to simply select insert. Nothing fancy here. And let's see, we now have our equation. And if I, here's the problem. It's inserted as an image. That's not great. We can right click it, select alt text, and I can't believe it. They thought it was a good idea to put in the MathML. Now, a law tech alt text, I could argue with you and be like, well, you shouldn't, but maybe on some random occasions I would be okay with it. Never would I ever put MathML as alt text. I can't believe that it does it automatically. So I'm kind of just showing what not to do, but I saw in the chat someone mentioned handwritten math. So we're going to try that. Let's go to our extension, math type. We're going to see if we could enter in something here. Though I hope this is not me going down a rabbit hole. So when I tried this earlier, I couldn't get it to work, but we're going to think positive, and we're going to try to hand enter an equation. So I'm going to select this little handwritten mode over here, and parts or styles of the formula have been lost. That's a good sign opening this up. Let's just do something simple like a 2 over a 3. Yay, math. Insert. It gives me a visual display in the bottom right corner, and it was able to insert it. So that's actually not a great example of the handwritten math. I actually thought it was going to put in my terrible 2 over 3, but it actually rendered the math as a numerical value and put it in. So I would like to address the handwritten thing. With that said, who wants to take a guess at what our workflow is going to be? So this is a test document. Here is the best workflow. Now, you would think, Sean, can't I just download it as a Word document? Maybe. Let's try it out.
Hey, Sean, I wonder if someone, I don't want to sideline us, but I'm wondering if someone wants to unmute and actually say what they think the workflow would be when they have a picture of their handwritten math work, you know, in a PDF or
I love
something,
it.
and
Would anyone?
they want to give it to their student using assistive technology.
Yeah. Well, you heard it from Monica yourself. Would anyone like to volunteer? I could choose. Who do I get to be the teacher? Hi,
Melissa's raising her
Melissa.
hand. You've got the floor. Hi, Melissa.
Hello. So I just downloaded MathPix and turned to a page of my notes that had a graph on it and took an image of it, and it made me choose from 3 options of how to encode it, and I had no idea. I just guessed. And now I still don't know what to do with it to get it into a file.
So the question was, if you had your math in a Google document, how would you guess the conversion? But I hear you, and I don't want to discount what you're saying. But I would like to address it really quick. So you can't generate encoding for a graphic. It has to be math itself. So if you have a chart or a graph, it's just an image. It would not be encoded with MathML or any other type.
That's a shame.
Well, it actually, it doesn't make sense. So if you have a graph or a chart,
it's just not a mathematical equation.
Exactly.
So it can't be encoded the same way a mathematical equation or formula would be, and then rendered as math ML to the user. So if I didn't have any vision and I'm using my screen reader and I land on a picture, and the picture is a graph from Professor Anderson, my screen reader is not going to be able to necessarily land on that image and navigate all pieces of the chart or graph because it's not a mathematical equation with MathML behind it. What I'm going to need instead, as someone who can't see that visual, is a written textual description of what that chart or graph is telling the user. So there's piece around accessibility of that requires alternative text description for our images and our charts, which is a little outside the scope of what we're trying to cover today, but it's a key piece. So we know we need to help people address that. Betsy, I see your hand. I was actually wondering if someone wanted to suggest what the workflow would be if they had a picture of their handwritten math equation. They've written work down, but they know they want to give it to a student who's using a screen reader, what steps they would take to produce accessible math. And Betsy, is that what you're raising your hand to
Two
address?
things. Yeah, because I've seen this done with math picks. So a whole page of handwritten math that was a picture in a PDF that it was able to go in and pull in as math. So that was pretty cool. And the other thing I was just going to say about graphs, and this is a question more than a comment, but I thought I had heard at some point that the thing to do would be to provide a table with data points for the person who has a visual impairment, maybe in addition to or instead of like a long description or an alt text description, because if they have the data points, they can then like solve things or answer questions perhaps
Yeah,
better than they could with just an alt text.
I 100% would agree with that statement. Because if you think about what a chart or graph does, if we think about a bar chart as an example, all it does is visually represent textual data. And if you don't have your vision, there's no point in having a chart or a graph. You simply would rely on the data itself. So I 100% will support you in that, Betsy. If possible, use a data table underneath your graphs and charts where it's possible. Now, I realize not all of them can be done that way, but there are many that can be. Yeah, thank you for that tip there.
Yep, thank you, Betsy, so much, and thank you to Melissa. So we'll go back to Sean's demonstration now.
Perfect. So the basic workflow, I was going to show you first what it looks like going from Google to Word in one of the problematic things that occurs. So this is that same document, but I downloaded it as a Word document. Does anyone notice how the math is on the page right now? Just curious if anyone sees what I can see. It's an image. Sorry, I thought you were being funny. It was funny to me. Yeah, so it's an image, and that is not good. So contextually, this is totally inaccessible. If I was a student who was in a higher level math class and I needed to be able to break down the different parts of the equation, an image isn't going to cut it. It might work for when we have a fraction of 2/3. You could argue that alt text could be written for that, but any type of complex equation, it just would never work in a million years. So pictures of math are totally inaccessible. I saw somebody mention about if you're forced to write alt text for an image of math, I would say you shouldn't be. And I don't want to teach you a bad best practice, because if you go down this path of writing alt text for images, you could be setting up yourself for failure down the line, because technically it's not accessible. We need to be able to navigate the individual components of the equation. So here's that workflow for how we're going to make that math accessible. So instead of downloading as a Word document, we're going to download it as a PDF. And then we're going to go over to MathPix. We're going to select the home button, find our downloads, and we're going to upload that document into MathPix. It should take a moment to convert over. And in theory, we should be able to view our file. Now, this happened to me yesterday. I was not able to convert the document on the fly here. So I don't want to get stuck if this does not work, but let's try it one more time. Let's try re-uploading the file. The same thing happened yesterday. I think there's a little bit of a delay for how quickly I can convert to a note from when I upload the file. And I seem to be having the same problem as yesterday. In theory, I'm assuming if I gave it a few minutes, it would allow me to convert it to a note. But rest assured, this math would be converted to the LaTeX, and we would then be able to export it to the Microsoft Word document. The same exact pathway there. And I love that this isn't working for me again today. That's just good luck for me. Okay, let's keep going. So that's the workflow for the Google Doc. Convert to PDF, upload in the MathPix, export over to Word. Now, I gave a very simplistic example there. It would probably be better just to create it in Word. But if you're working with legacy documents or you've already done a lot of your heavy lifting in Google, which I understand is totally possible, this is a workflow that can help you get it to a more accessible state without a whole lot of headache. Okay, last but not least, we have our workflow for math in PowerPoint. So I have a thing here. Do not do this. The main reason the math is inaccessible in PowerPoint. We're going to follow the same steps that we did previously, which is exporting to a PDF, uploading into MathPix, converting it to a note, editing the LaTeX, and exporting to a Word document with MathML. So same idea with PowerPoint. Let's open up PowerPoint. We can do a blank presentation, and let's do a new slide. And here's the thing. We could do insert, equation, and put in our equation that we want to have. When I tested it with my screen reader, it was totally inaccessible. And apparently this is a known bug from within PowerPoint that while we're able to get it to visually set in correctly, it's not encoded appropriately and therefore will not be accessible to anyone using a screen reader. So it's very unfortunate that this is the way that it is. And really, your best bet is to follow the same process that we did previously, which includes doing a file, save as, PDF, somewhere in this drop-down menu. Let's put it on our desktop so I don't lose it. And in theory, we would follow the same process. Hold on one moment. I've got too many windows open. Where's that test at? Here we are. So we've got our math in here. We would follow the same process. We're going to go over to MathPix. We're going to upload a PDF. Let's find our converted PowerPoint to PDF. And, oh my gosh, it will not let me upload or convert to a note. Here we go. I refresh the page, and now it's letting me convert it to a note. So it put in the LaTeX, as we learned. And now we're going to take it out to docx. Same process that we're following for all of these processes. I would be able to test that Google Doc now as well, but it's going to work exactly the same because we had converted it to a PDF. So here now is our same content. Now it's not in PowerPoint format, It's in Word. However, the content is now consumable, and you can share this with your students and be rest assured that it is accessible to their screen reader, which is what we're trying to do here. So all of our roads and paths lead to getting our math accessible into Word or an accessible HTML page like Canvas. Okay, Monica, that concludes the demos that I have prepared here. So
Thanks, Sean. I want to reiterate to folks who some folks heard this yesterday and some folks maybe didn't attend yesterday and are attending today. We do have Sean was able to secure through his connection with MathPix a 30-day free trial for everyone who registered and attended yesterday or today. And all you need to do to get started with that is to email me and we can help set you up with that. So I wanted to reiterate that. We do have several questions that are hanging out in the Q&A, and I'd like to be able to get through those and then just open it up for discussion, time permitting. Does that sound good?
That sounds wonderful to me.
Okay, great. So for now, I'm going to minimize the chat, which means, Dawn, I'm not looking at the chat. So if there's something happening there that we need to know about, you can let us know. What I'm going to do is get into our FAQs, which have been growing. There they are. Okay. Okay. So the first couple of questions are from the same person, and it's about accessible lecture note application. So this particular person uses a program called Notability, which I personally have heard of, but I'm not intimately familiar with. And unfortunately, right now, Notability, it looks like it's exporting notes as PDF or images. So this person knows that's not going to be accessible. Are you aware of maybe an accessible alternative to Notability? And if not, would you say the workflows you discussed today would be appropriate for that content?
That's a great question. Excuse me, I've been having a cough, trying to shake it off. Notability is awesome, and I love that program in general. Accessibility tends to be an outside layer that many of these companies haven't thought about. I do not know of an alternative that offers the same level of support. I would advise whoever asked that question to consider MathPix possibly as a tool in the toolbox to help the process. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you to abandon Notability. I would, however, say if you're getting a resulting PDF, you're going to need to take it another step further. I would also implore you to look into seeing if there's other export options. Perhaps there's an export to Word. It sounds like you probably know it a lot better than I do, but I don't know of any tool that can export to an accessible Word document with the math enabled outside of what I've shown you today. However, I don't know everything. And so there's very likely a tool out there, but I don't know of an alternative, unfortunately.
I'm hopeful that I think that was a very honest answer. And I'm hopeful that because Title II web accessibility regulation, are coming up in the spring and higher education entities are paying such close attention to it that our third-party vendors are going to understand what a critical issue this is for us and begin to, embed more accessible options and accessibility support. So is the person who asked that question, is there anything else you'd like to ask or add before we move on to the next question?
I have something to add. A quick little search here while we were going. A tool called Nebo appears to be coming up as a potential solution for exporting math in a Word document, but I don't know if it is comparable to what Notability
does. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Oh, did someone unmute?
I was going to.
I was the one who asked those questions because I use Notability to handwrite my notes and display them in class and videotape it with captions enabled in Zoom. And then I post it. And when you go to share, the only share options are a PDF file or I believe a JPEG image.
Yeah, it's not uncommon. This accessibility is like the Wild West, and you layer math on top of it. It's even another degree out. So I'm not surprised. Yeah, I would stick to considering MathPix as a tool in the toolbox that you can use to get that PDF out, throw it into MathPix to get an editable Word document within a couple minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the question. We're going to move on to the next question from Trevor, who asks about Equatio in Google Docs and if that provides any further solution around accessibility of math in Google Docs. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, my understanding is there are multiple input methodologies to get math into a document, but the limitation is on Google's side. So no matter how we get the math over into the Google Suite, right now, that math is not being interpreted accessibly. So I am actually unfamiliar with the Equatio. I know what it is. I understand what it is. I've been around a long time. I don't understand its full capabilities. So it's possible that it has some functionality that I'm not aware of. However, what I do know is that it will not change the default mechanism for which Google displays the math to an end user. So I would feel confident in saying there's probably a ton of input methods, but accessing the content remains inaccessible in the Google Suite as of this conversation. But I do know they have an input methodology.
Yeah.
And an accessible input methodology.
I think you're right. I think the limitation, unfortunately, is out of our hands and in Google because they're just not rendering the math in MathML.
Exactly. It's displaying the math as an image in Google, which like we can have the alt text discussion. I'm happy to go down that rabbit hole. However, like fundamentally being able to navigate the individual components of an equation using my screen reader, that's what I consider accessible math. Google like doesn't allow us to do that, which is just, but
I see Trevor has come off camera.
Oh, perfect. Hello, Trevor.
Yeah, I sort of figured that I was going to get an answer similar to that. I think I don't know this for sure, but it seems like Equatio's still has all that information embedded in the math, like the LaTeX, and I imagine the MML, the auto alt text that are generated are linguistic, are not symbolic.
Gotcha.
So that's, I mean, encouraging. Yeah, I'm from kind of what I'm understanding, you're saying it's a limitation on Google's ability to
Totally
have that information presented that way.
And I have like as an accessibility expert, sometimes I feel this need to take a stance, and that's why you're hearing me say like I don't want images of math. It's kind of like I'm taking a stance to not go down that path, but I'm with you. If you have to, and there's no other route, and it's the end of the world, and you have to put alt text on an image for math, please use spoken math and not LaTeX. But I'm taking an accessibility
I think that's
stance.
a good point. I think that's a good point that people needed to hear. And I agree with your stance.
Awesome.
Yeah. Trevor, thanks for the question. Good, we got a thumbs up. I'm going to move on to the next one. Okay, so earlier when you were doing some live demo and you had math type open, in your Word toolbar, Sean, someone is noting that it seems like maybe you're using an older version of math type because the version that this person's using looks different. So they're wondering if one, if you're using an older, are you using an older version? Maybe you have you have a particular interface
I am
enabled.
using an older version. The primary reason for that is as an accessibility specialist, I have a boatload of very touchy assistive technology. And if I update some tech, what tends to happen is a domino effect of my other software being broken. And so I don't update and install my software on purpose until it's absolutely mandatory or I am choosing to update. So you're not wrong. I am using one version behind the current version within my Microsoft desktop version. The newer version behaves a little different. The editor is a little more user-friendly, I would say. But I am aware I am using one version behind the current version.
And so this person, Jason, wants to know if folks that are not you are stuck with the newer version, or if there's a way to revert back.
Are you saying you don't like the new version? Because
Jason, do you want to come off mute and add your thoughts to your question if you're still here?
Yeah, it's terrible. I believe it uses.
Oh,
Sorry,
here he
Jason.
is.
Sorry about that. Yeah, it's basically really terrible. The menus don't work the same. I miss my keyboard shortcuts. And I'm also a big keyboard shortcut fan. So I think Wireless took it over now. So it's a totally different. It's a subscription based. Because I remember when we used to be able to get like the installation CDs. I'm really dating myself now, but yeah.
I was around then. I remember that with math type specifically.
Mhm.
And it was like the only application. It had like a monopoly in the math corner for input. I'm with you. I'm trying to see how I was able to bypass it because I had accidentally updated Jason, and I also hated it. And I don't recall what I did. I think because I'm a nerd in accessibility, truthfully, I tend to keep exe files. I have a software folder in my Dropbox account where I just make a copy of the exe, like the downloaded files. Because as someone that works in this space, like for years, it used to matter the order in which you installed assistive technology, like JAWS versus. I won't go down that tangent, but it honestly mattered. And if you did it the reverse order, it would break your computer or the tech wouldn't work. I believe that's what I did to undo it, because you might reach out to them.
What version are you using on your? Because is it 6.9?
You know what's crazy? So mine is saying I just did math type help, and it's displaying 7.9. So
that's the platform.
Yeah, now you're gonna put me down a rabbit hole. I'm not gonna do it on this call.
Oh no, please don't. Yeah, don't worry about.
But I have
that is
no
interesting
idea.
though.
I have the old interface for sure because I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Sorry, I guess I'm just lucky. I would reach out to them. I bet they have there's got to be something to disable it, or perhaps, and I'll get to you in just a moment, Alice. Maybe you can disable the user interface. Maybe see about that, Jason. And truthfully, if you find out, please reach out to Monica and let her know, because I would love to know.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Awesome. And Alice, is your name Alice? Am I misspeaking?
It's Elise,
I want to say
but it's fine.
My apologies.
So I wanted to do two plugs because I've been frustrated with the new math type. And if you fill out their little feedback thing, I filled it out and was like, this is terrible, blah, blah, blah. They contacted me almost immediately. I met with them over Zoom and got to tell them all the things that I was upset about. And if everyone did that, they might change it. And the other thing they told me is one of the things that I hated about the new interface is in the old interface, I would type, I think I said this yesterday, I would just type everything in the Word document in LaTeX code and then use the keyboard shortcut to convert it. And I was said, the new interface doesn't let you do that. And they said, use the keyboard shortcut Control-Shift-L. It opens up a little box. You can type your LaTeX in there, hit enter, and it works better, but not as good as the old one. But as an intermediate thing for people, you can still type LaTeX. You just have to do this extra keyboard shortcuts. You just keep the math type editor open 100% of the time off to the side because it's its own little side window now.
Yeah.
And you just Control-Shift-L anytime you want to put an equation in, type your LaTeX, hit insert, enter to insert, and then just keep rolling. And that has helped, but it's still not as good as the old one.
I'm impressed now that I have the old one. I feel lucky. So I don't even know how I did it, but I think it was from a legacy install. Any hooser, thank you for that information, Elise. My apologies for messing up your name.
And Elise, I want to address a question you put in FAQ and acknowledge like some pivoting I think that Sean and I have had to do between yesterday's session and today. In the session description, we did state that our intention was to cover best practices for alternative text for things like charts and graphs to make them accessible. And between kind of like some technical difficulties yesterday and what we wanted to make sure we reiterated today, there was like too much to cover. So I do know that the slide deck that Sean had prepared for yesterday's session that we modified for today has a lot of really great slides on writing meaningful alt text for these assets that do not give answers away for questions. And so right now, what I can promise is that everyone will have access to those slide decks because I have them. So you'll have that information that we didn't get to cover live. And what I'm hoping to do, I don't know, this is dependent on a conversation with Dawn and budget, is do another session that's actually just dedicated to alternative text for images and complex images, because we're having almost two different conversations. One about like the equations and the formulas and how those need to be rendered accessibly for someone who's blind. And then there's other pieces of STEM content, that are still very important to your instruction of students that have a different process for accessibility. So I hope to be able to cover that in another session. And what we were finding out yesterday is it was too
The
much and
onion
not
was too
working.
big.
Yeah, the onion was
Yeah.
too big. So thank you for acknowledging that. And I take responsibility for that. And that's what I have to offer you right now.
And just know that there are some techniques you can do for alternate text on charts and graphs. I don't want to deep dive into it, but essentially you want to give the user what they need to answer your questions. And sometimes, it's easier said than done, but I'm not going to say anything else, Monica.
I'd like to keep going with some of the questions that we haven't answered. And I don't think we're going to get to all of them. I have 16 open questions. Okay, so the next one is about how critical is it to have all the math on its own line?
So as someone that's been in the accessibility space for a long time, sometimes I forget what's personal preference versus a requirement. I learned how to create Braille for students that were blind. In order for Braille to be created in the fastest, most efficient way in what is a very long and difficult process, the math needs to be on its own line. This makes it to where Braille characters don't get confused between ends of sentences like a period or even different symbols with the math equation itself. So my entire accessibility career, every expert that I ever learned from over the last however many years, since 2008 is when I got started in this field, it was to put the math on its own line. I think that I can alter what I initially said. I think for midterms, assignments where you are expecting a response, I think it's more important for the math to be on its own line. I think if you are developing instructional content within Canvas or another environment, it makes sense and it would be okay with me if you put text around the math. I can see where what I initially messaged was confusing. Oh, and I think my camera just died on me, but I am here in spirit. So what really matters is most likely the math being on its own line for when you're expecting a user response. My apologies for the camera dying here. Does that help answer the question?
Yes, that helps a lot. Thank you. Because I'd write basically like lecture notes in Microsoft Word that are like the transcripts for my videos. And so I have text within a line, math within a line, but it's instructional materials, not something that they respond to. So it sounds like it's okay to do it
I
that
think
way?
it's okay. And
Okay.
I would say use your like best judgment visually to determine like, is the text blending with the equation at all visually? And that is kind of like a good indicator. We also teach that for best practices in font for accessibility, not related to math, but there are some characters in some fonts that are very similar. For example, an uppercase I and L, right? Sometimes when those two letters are next to each other, the computer will even have difficulty in discerning between the two, or O and 0, the letter R, the letter N, and M also. Anyways, yeah, so you can do a little vision test on there, but otherwise, I like our idea. Instructional content, it's okay. If you're expecting user response, I would advise for an independent line.
Thank you for that conversation. Okay, so next question. I'm gonna bounce around a little bit, but I'm doing my best to cover as much as possible. So can you upload the PowerPoint file to MathPix, or do you need to first convert the PowerPoint file to like save as PDF and then upload to do the conversion, the mass conversion in MathPix?
It does require a PDF or a screenshot. A screenshot wouldn't make sense probably unless you just wanted to do a few slides. That was actually something I didn't get to show you, was the OCR tool. So I showed you like the full version of uploading a PDF, but there is a standalone OCR product where you like screenshot the math on your computer. So if you wanted to maybe, can I actually show that really quick? Is that okay, Monica?
I think so. I'd like to see some thumbs up if people want that right now, if that's going to be a valuable experience for them to watch the OCR
Yeah.
capabilities. Okay, yes, go for it.
Okay, I think it's relevant. And so let's just pretend this is our slide. But let's say like we just cared about this one and we wanted to get this slide accessible. A quick way that we could do that is launch the MathPix snipping tool. And I'm going to select new snip. And then I simply screenshot the math. And now I can copy like mathml for Word. We can then take it to our Word document. This is the one with our Google stuff.
Sorry,
Test.
I'm so sorry, Sean. Go back to the very beginning.
Go back to the very beginning.
Yep. So we're going to start this demo over and we're going to go at half the speed you're going.
You got it.
And state out loud exactly each step you're doing as you're doing it.
Understood. All right. Well, the first step is to launch the MathPix snipping tool. So I have it. It's already been installed on my computer. And to launch it, I'm selecting the start button on my quick access toolbar in the bottom. And I'm choosing the option MathPix snipping tool. Alternatively, you could go to your start menu and search for MathPix snipping tool to launch the application. So the application is now live, and we have several different areas that we can engage with this math. So I'm on what's called the OCR tab, and there's a button in the MathPix snipping tool that says create snip from screenshot. Additionally, you could upload a snip, or you can create a snip by drawing. I'm going to select the create a snip from OCR. And this is going to pull up a screenshot mechanism on my PC. And I'm going to drag a box around this equation in my PDF. So we're going to select the screenshot snip. And I'm not sure if you can see this step because I'm screen sharing, but it made my screen gray and I simply drew a box around the equation. Now this is from within my PDF, and in the MathPix snipping tool, I now have the equation entered into the snipping tool. So this is the power of MathPix. If I fully expand the window or make it a little larger, we now have a variety of options that we can choose from using our MathPix snipping tool. So the first step was to OCR it, which we did. And now we have like a million options we can do. We can copy the LaTeX code in several different renditions underneath this section where the equation is. If I select my data tab, we have additional options that we can copy this equation. So if my end goal is to get this over into Word, I could simply copy the MathML for MS Word, and now it's on my clipboard. My clipboard is this imaginary space on my computer, and it can only hold one item at a time. And so if I want to paste this MathML, I need a location that I could paste it in. Let's just do a brand new Word document with nothing in it. And this will be our pasted equation from MathPix snipping tool. I'm going to select my enter key, and then I'm going to use my keyboard shortcut, or we can right click and paste. And it pastes that equation based on the snipping tool into my Word document. So the original question was, can we upload a PowerPoint to MathPix? You cannot. However, you can convert to PDF and do the whole thing at once, or you could rebuild your document in Word using the snipping tool to grab the math quickly out of your PowerPoint that you have already created.
Thanks for showing the OCR function. Betsy, I see your hand is raised.
Sorry, took me a minute to get to my microphone. So we got this question from someone because we've mostly on our campus been talking about the LaTeX and the MathML. Somebody asked about ASCII math. And so and I don't know about it in documents, but it can be rendered in Canvas. And I just was curious if anybody else has tested that for accessibility with a screen reader. And I can share my screen and show
Yeah, that would be
an
great.
example. Okay. And I know nothing, so I'll preface. So hopefully, are you seeing?
So, Betsy,
Sorry, are
without
you?
deep diving too far, I can kind of already answer what's happening. So Canvas, their platform in general, they render any text-based math as MathML. So ASCII is sort of like another form of input in addition to LaTeX and MathML. And Canvas is actually doing the heavy lifting for us. So I don't want to cut you off. I have a feeling I know where you're going with it.
Yeah, sorry. Let
Please
me
continue.
I just want to share this though, in case other people know ASCII so that you know you can type it directly into Canvas also. And then so you use this backtick around your ASCII math and somewhere on the page, and it doesn't have to be at the top. It can be in the middle, it can be in the bottom. You use this backslash and then parentheses backslash, close parentheses. And doing that will tell Canvas that this needs to be rendered differently. So when I save it, right, you'll see that goes away and what's left is this. So we did learn that ASCII can work. I don't know if anybody knows that, like as math ASCII, again, I don't know what I'm talking about, but we were able to ascertain this, but we just haven't we haven't tested it yet.
So yeah, I could totally, thank you for exploring that. So ASCII math in itself is not accessible. It's plain text. It's sort of the structure of math, which in its traditional sense makes sense. From an accessibility lens, the ASCII math as itself is not accessible. However, what you demonstrated was the power of Canvas. So the Canvas LMS takes that ASCII math, and if that's your preferred language model, awesome. I have no qualm against that. However, I would say Canvas is doing the heavy lifting. So the true path to accessibility using that workflow is it has to be in Canvas. You cannot use ASCII math elsewhere.
Good to know.
But it will work as you demonstrated there. And it's leveraging this tool called MathJax to render any math entered to accessible MathML. That's what Google should be doing, but they're not. Yeah. So your process will work there if you want.
Thank you. Yeah, that's good.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Betsy. I'm going to take a couple more. We've got 10 minutes. I'm going to take a couple more questions from our FAQ, going down to the bottom, so I'm getting a mix of people. Okay, I like this question because I think it's more of the art of accessibility and best practice rather than, you know, this or that. So an anonymous participant asks, some faculty want to keep their inaccessible PowerPoint presentations in Canvas because they like the design or look or feel of it. Okay. Um, and perhaps the PowerPoint looks like it did in their in-person classes when they gave the lecture and were, speaking in real time, describing what was going on in the slide deck to students. Can we still provide the inaccessible PowerPoint if there's also an accessible Word version of that content? I would say that that's okay.
Yes. Yes.
I would say we're not saying you must abandon PowerPoint and not use that tool or use that tool in your instruction. What we're saying is that to meet true accessibility requirements and to meet the access needs of students who are AT users, and you might not always know who is an assistive technology user, then they would need that information presented outside of the slide deck.
And just to add some accessibility layer on top of it, so under Section 508 of the Rehabilitation Act, the law here in the US that has adopted the WCAG 2.1 AA standards as the North Star principle. So under Section 508, we are allowed to provide an accessible alternative. I don't want to lecture too hard on law, but yeah, you totally can, and it's legally okay.
Here's another question, and Sean, if you're not sure, I think this is one I would want to take back to my colleague Zach, who presented with me early October. Do we have suggestions for validating inside math picks the accuracy of the generated LaTeX if you're not super familiar with LaTeX? I'm not a mathematician and I'm not familiar with LaTeX, but I know that with inside math picks you have two screens. You've got the generated LaTeX, which you can export, and then you also have on the other side it's showing you visually the math that's being generated from the LaTeX. So that's maybe one way to check, like, does it look right to you? But
That
Sean, I'm
that is the
curious.
best way. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
The best way is to visually check. I don't know of any like automated checker, but my understanding in the work I've done with some other faculty is to visually match up. So you can visually look at your math in the image panel of math picks, and as long as it looks right, it should be coded correctly. And the simple way to describe that is like, if you mess up the LaTeX, it will visually change how the document looks.
Is rendering. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, another question. Does math type add-on for Word have an option for hand drawing? Or is it
Yes.
keyboard entry only? Okay.
Yes, it does have an option for it. Yeah, it's called the math input panel. I could show you if you would like. It's right under the main option that you do under inline. Though I suppose I don't know for sure with the new interface.
Am I understanding correctly that right now there is no way to create accessible equations if a school is using Google Docs with math type installed in it? Math picks would be required.
This, I would say yes, but there's a caveat. So there's a technical requirement that any image requires alternate text. This is what schools have leaned on for years. Oh, my math is entered as an image, and we put in LaTeX description. Therefore, it's accessible. The argument I make against that is while it passes accessibility checks, it is not necessarily usable to someone who uses a screen reader. It might work for like simple algebraic equations. However, if the student progresses into higher academia math, like graduate level work, that solution becomes problematic very quickly. So with accessibility law, we always have two frames of focus. One, does it pass the technical literal requirements? That's stage one. And you could technically do that in a Google Doc with math as an image with alt text. But I would advise against that because it breaks number two, which is the usability of said math with someone who's actually blind or low vision. I hope that answers your question. I am not trying to be vague. It's just like you can get stuff to pass the checkboxes or you can make it usable for someone who's blind. And I think it's more important to get it usable for someone who's blind. And so my advice across all of the speakings I do, all of the teachings I do throughout my career and every other accessibility specialist I know, we advocate for getting math into a Word document or to accessible HTML. That concludes
Thank you.
my answer. I kind of feel like I'm interviewing.
Okay, here's another one. When you upload a PDF to MathPix, does it OCR and remediate everything? So for example, if you know the PDF doesn't have proper tagging or like, heading structure, so
That
we're
is a
talking
great
about
question.
components outside of the math equations, is it fixing those issues as well? I don't think it is.
It is not. However, they want to move towards that. But today, out of the box, no. You could apply a low-level heading structure, but we have no ability to edit our hyperlinks, alternate text, list items, or table structure elements from within the MathPix editor. It truly is really for the math conversion. So it's like step one in the greater process of things.
Okay. So we're 3 minutes away from ending, and I'm going to pause answering FAQ questions. I'm gonna open it up to the floor. I think that we can have time for like one more question. So if you are like just sitting on the edge of your seat out there in the audience and you're like, I have to have this question answered before I can sleep tonight, please unmute. Well, I think that's maybe a good sign.
Hey, sorry about that. Will there be homework? No. I'm just wondering because there's a group of people that want to do this work and want to continue probably learning and chatting with each other about what's working and whatnot. Is there a plan for a community of practice for this specific workflow through the SBCTC in the future?
That's a great question. I'm curious, Dawn, if you have thoughts.
There isn't one, but there could be.
Feel free to tag me in on that in any way I can help. Like that would be so cool to be a part of just as a third-party person regardless.
Yeah, and so without, putting my colleague Dawn too much on the spot here, but I think that Betsy, that's a great idea and a conversation I'd like to, not have stop here. I know that I would need help in organizing something like that.
I think that's something that I could work on.
And I'll just, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I know the accessibility subgroup of the ELC, we've talked about some specialist like community of practice groups. So maybe like between your office and what they're thinking about doing there, something can blossom.
Gotcha.
This is Michael from Highline College. We're having a kind of a watch party with math faculty here, and I've had some people asking if there's a central where math people get together for accessibility. So if you start something, I know there's interest at Highline.
Thanks, Michael. Well, it is 4:30 and I want to be respectful of everyone's time. So thank you to everyone who came today, stayed engaged. Really appreciate you being here. Sean, thank you for coming back, round 2. We appreciate your experience and expertise. Everyone, we will share today's slide deck and recording to registered participants, and Dawn will have all these materials as well.
Thank you everyone for having me, Monica. I appreciate the opportunity here. And yeah, if I'm happy to be back anytime. So again, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. And you all did a great job. A+, Monica, across the board.
That's right. All right. Thanks, y'all. Have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you.